Yo, what is going on, guys and girls around the world? It's your boy Sethieo coming at you from the Viewpoint TV, and today I'm bringing you the first part of the series, the stats and the facts. In this specific series, we're going to talk about topics that are relevant in today's society, and we're simply going to bring what it's called, the stats and the fact. I want to focus on things that a lot of people argue about, places where a lot of disagreements arise, so we can get a better understanding of what's really going on behind the scenes rather than just having that societal bias that most individuals have. Before I keep on mumbling, we're gonna hop over to where the magic happens and we're gonna get this video started. So let's go.
History does not repeat, but it does instruct. As the founding fathers debated the Constitution, they took instruction from the history that they knew and they seen first person to come up with a way to prevent tragedies similar to what they seen from happening ever again in society. The Second Amendment was specifically written and based on the right to bear arms. It goes to show how our founding fathers were thinking about the future. The stuff that they seen, the stuff that they went through, they never wanted it to happen again, so they wrote down a bunch of amendments that the future had to follow in order to stay a strong, united society. It ensures that the people have arms for defense suitable to their condition and degree. It is declared by statute and is indeed a public allowance under no restriction of the natural right of resistance and self-preservation when the sanctions of society and law are found insufficient to restrain the violence of oppression. First thing I want to talk about is government tyranny. Many people have the misconception that government tyranny is an unrealistic idea in today's modern society. But what I think they fail to realize is if we take a second to look around the world, how many countries are still being ruled by a tyrant? I don't know. Here's a small list of them. So tell me again, it's unrealistic for tyranny in modern society? Let's take a trip back to world history class in Nazi Germany. One driving force behind the massive "don't tread on me and don't take my gun" movement is the actions that Hitler took. We have the mindset that there's trends currently going on in modern United States that kind of align with his regime. Adolf Hitler decided to take over his people shortly after a gun ban / confiscation. The first thing he did during his reign was he took the power out of his people's hands, the guns, because, in quotations, guns are dangerous in the hands of people. After seizing the only tools of defense, his true plan laid out. People then got the choice to be enslaved or slayed, and there was nothing in between. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, guys, history instructs. Listen to the simple instructions. Now let's get into the real statistics of this video. Let's start off with a bang, no pun intended. Gun homicide trends from 1950 to 2010. It's a common misconception that homicide rates have been increasing in recent society, when the truth is, in the past few decades, they've been cut in half. Ironically, along this decrease, gun ownership has doubled in the United States. Are you telling me that with more guns, there's less homicides? That can't be right. Now, going off of gun homicides, let's get straight into the touchy subject of mass shooting. While the United States does have an unusually high mass shooting rate, especially for a highly developed nation, it is a common misconception that it's the worst country whenever it comes to these mass shooting rates. The truth of the matter is the United States is actually 66th in the world for mass shootings per capita. But we have had more mass shootings whenever it comes to numbers than any other country in the world. And this goes for any highly populated nation, and it literally applies to anything whenever it comes to illness. Murder is a mental illness, so let's talk about that. The more populated or dense an area is, the more people are going to get the illness. And some anti-gun activists fail to identify the statistical law. Charts that show mass shooting rates versus other countries are all over the internet, and they're extremely misleading because what they're failing to tell you is this is not per capita. This is just raw numbers. And you cannot compare a country that has a population of 20,000 people to a country that has a population of 350 million people. It just doesn't add up. You cannot do that. Moving on, a few of the European countries that actually sustain a higher per capita mass shooting rate than America is as follows: Norway, France, Switzerland, a lot. like 65 more. And it's funny because these are the countries that people say they would like to live rather than the United States, but that's simply because they're reading misleading statistics. The Crime Prevention Research Center looked at murder rates from mass shootings between 2009 and 2015. Here are the results that they found. The countries themselves are obviously already listed from highest median death rate to lowest median death rate. And as you can see, the United States is pretty far down. Now let's get into the weapon types used for the mass shootings. Between 1982 and 2019, based on statistics and scientific research, handguns are more lethal than assault rifles whenever it comes to mass shooting fatalities. In a recent study, researchers analyzed autopsies from 23 mass shootings that were in the FBI records between 2000 and 2016 to understand specific wounds and the fatality of them. They looked at things such as where the victims were shot, from what angle they were shot, if any specific organs were hit, deadly-wise, and the firearm used. On the 232 victims that were shot, the research team found that fatalities that were done by a handgun, there was a higher chance of them dying from the wound. About 26% of those people shot with handgun had more than one fatal wound, versus 2% of people shot with rifles had one or more than one fatal wound. Handguns were also more associated with the brain and the heart injuries that immediately killed the autopsied body. The team ended up replying to this by saying, "All of us were shocked. We came to the table with our bias that an assault weapon would be worse. This should inform the medical community about what to expect at trauma centers, as well as lawmakers about reasonable gun laws." This goes to show that so far, the science and the statistics support the gun rights. Another interesting statistic we can get into is you're more likely to be killed by hands and feet and hammers than you are to be killed with these AR-15s that are so scary in modern society. Keep in mind, the rifles used in these statistics are not just AR-15s. They include every single rifle you know, and that's including the one hanging in your grandpa's living room above his fireplace. That's a rifle, and it's included in the stat. Not just the scary black ones that are military grade, even though they shoot the same bullet. I mean, it's a common misconception that those ones are more deadly than those ones. So now that we see 2.4 times as many people are being killed with hands and feet every year, maybe we should write legislation against people getting their hands and feet amputated because it's dangerous to have these in the hands of the people. Let's talk about knives. There are 5.3 times as many stabbings that cause fatality in the United States per year compared to rifles. Should we ban cutlery? Probably not. I mean, that's what you guys will say, but why? That doesn't make any sense. Something that kills 200 people a year is causing all of this backlash, but something that kills 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people altogether isn't being touched? Not to get into any conspiracies or anything, but let's think about this for a second. We cannot use knives for defense against government tyranny, but we can use those rifles. Ironic that their ban choice is our only defense mechanism? Let's talk about the total number of gun deaths compared to mass shootings. Hint, mass shootings are a long shot minority. As seen in the chart here, 23,000 people die from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The argument against this statistic is the fact that it's not the gun that made them want to kill themselves. It's simply they had mental health issues. And at the end of the day, studies go to show that if they don't have a gun, they'll use other means. And it's also pretty crazy that there's more people killing themselves than there are homicides being carried out by these evil guns. They're literally killing themselves. So how about due to these suicides, we try and pass a law that it's mandatory for children to meet up with a therapist maybe once a week in schools? I mean, we hire all these teachers anyway, might as well hire one more employee. Regardless of their personality, they need to get a checkup just to make sure their mental health is in check. But wait, what did she just scream? I can hear it now. All the Karens out there calling the schools saying, "My kid is not mentally ill. He doesn't need a mental health evaluation ever. Just because there's crazy kids around him shooting everybody doesn't mean he's gonna go ahead and do the same thing. He doesn't need to be included in this." Does this sound familiar? I mean, one kid shoots a school up and now everybody has to get rid of their guns? This just goes to show that the minor problems are the important problems until it goes against their agenda. But back on track to the suicide thing. Sure, if guns were banned and there weren't guns in the hands of the suicidal, chances are they would have a harder time killing themselves. A self-inflicted gunshot wound is usually fatal, and yes, that is a reasonable argument, but it's not yet supported by statistics. So tell me, how can your argument be supported by theory and be right, but my argument is supported by stats and facts and it's wrong? Another eye-opening topic is children killed by other means of, firearms. The big killer. More children are killed annually in accidents involving drunk drivers than they are in accidents involving firearms. In 2018, 214 deaths among children involved in alcohol-impaired driver, while there were only 28 children killed in mass shooting. Nearly 8 times as many children are dying by drunk drivers than they are in mass shootings, but the mass shooting is our focus point. Maybe we should ban alcohol again? But, oh wait. Another history lesson. We tried that and it didn't work. It just made things worse. So what do you think's going to happen whenever you ban the AR-15? Another quick math to add to that. 50.7% of the population drink alcohol. That means we can reasonably say 50.7% of the people who support the gun ban also drink alcohol. And this is the same concept of a pro-gun individual owning an AR-15. Yes, people are killed with AR-15s occasionally, but just because we own one doesn't mean we support those casualties. 8 times more kids are killed by drunk driving. Does that mean you support these deaths by consuming alcohol? No! Talk about common sense gun laws. How about we talk about common sense for the people laws? Because obviously y'all lack it. Another interesting topic to talk about is, what's going on in London? After their gun ban, there's literally no decrease in homicides, nor was there a decrease in violent crime. All of that stuff was literally replaced by other means. This just goes to show you can't write legislation against evil, because the evil people are evil people. It's not the laws that determine whether or not they're evil. And this is the same thing that happened in multiple other countries. Taking a tool out of somebody's hand isn't going to do anything. It's just going to force them to find another tool to get the job done. Gun ban. There was just 4 police officers stabbed with knives. He went on a rampage with a knife. It was literally, you want to say mass shooting, it was a mass stabbing. It just goes to show, you get rid of guns, it's not going to stop killing. Nor is it going to stop the mass killings that you see, because people are going to use other means. They're going to use trucks. You remember that truck that killed 82 people? Yeah, that was just a truck, and anybody can get a truck. Are you going to ban U-Hauls? What about the bombs that we used to see all the time, like the Boston bomber? Those killed thousands of people. Talk about the bombs that were put off in buildings, and the buildings fell on every single person inside. What is more of a threat to our society? Bombs that destroy buildings and kill thousands? Or, the AR-15 that kills 200 people a year. Now, like I said, I'm not saying those deaths are pointless and they mean nothing. They do mean something. Every single death is a horrible tragedy that nobody wants to see. But that doesn't mean you start making laws and legislation that's against the law-abiding citizen. The only thing a gun ban is going to do is take the guns out of the people that actually care about the laws. While the criminals who don't, they're going to sustain their toll. And they're going to walk down streets, and they're going to have the freedom to choose whatever house they want, because they know these houses are probably following the law, but I'm not, because, I'm a murderer, I'm a burglar, I want to rob this place, and I want to take all their money and everything inside while I sit here and wave this gun in their face because I know they don't have one. There's 2 things that can happen. You don't do a gun ban, or you do a gun ban and the world goes downhill. Literally going to be another civil war. That's about going to do it for this video. If you learned something or enjoyed the video just in itself, go ahead and leave a like below, maybe subscribe. If you really like it, go ahead and tell your friends about me. Post me on your social media so we can get this channel to blow up, as well as this series, the stats and the facts. I don't have an official outro, so I'm just going to do it verbally. Once again, thank you for coming here. I hope you enjoyed the video. It took a while to make, and peace out. See you in the next one.